Hello, let's talk weather. This is an exciting time because we have an atmospheric river here. And I'm Neda Iranpour, a meteorologist. Vanessa, also a meteorologist. So it's big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. We both have been forecasting for quite some time here in Southern California, in San Diego, where they say we don't have active weather. I think that's completely inaccurate. You and I know by now that we certainly do. And I think we went to Mississippi State too around the same time.
Yes.
So all eyes are on a system, right? We have an area of low pressure. And typically in the past, Neda, what I've noticed is we've had this ridging block, right? Which actually prevents Southern California, especially us here in San Diego, from really getting in on the action when it comes to the jet stream diving and us getting those storm systems that tend to impact so much of the Pacific Northwest. We usually see it stalled well to our north.
Yeah.
Sometimes it'll bring cooler temperatures, enhancing that onshore flow, bringing the big surf, the gusty winds.
Think about it. 2 days ago, I was surfing at the beach.
Ooh.
It was warm in my wetsuit.
Yeah.
And it was, beautiful this past, October, up until now.
Yeah.
We've had sun, beach weather,
Yeah.
perfect sunny skies for many, many days. I can't even remember any kind of measurable rain that we've had here. So that ridging you were talking about, has stuck around.
When we talk about the start of fall too, we talk about really hot temperatures. We were under summer-like conditions for the start of fall. And even this past Sunday, it was so warm that we broke daily max records.
Crazy.
So we're talking about kind of like a weather whiplash, right? As we're getting into what's now mid-November, we're finally going to get some traction on much needed rain. I know we talk about it pretty frequent on the morning show about how much in a deficit that we've been in when it comes to the rain, and we're in desperate need of that moisture to soak up the vegetation, because that's also how again, a lot of the dry brush susceptible to wildfires.
Yeah, think about right now, October, November, fire season's high. This is when we have the Santa Anas sometimes. So without rain, all of that is fuel, and unfortunately that has been the case. But then what also happens is the brush dries, the soil can't absorb that much water so quickly when we haven't had any of it. Yeah. It's like cracked. So it's hard for it to take in all that moisture. But the moisture's here.
The moisture's here. And
we
we certainly need it for our reservoirs, right? That's why we're in a drought. We were actually downgraded, or actually we upgraded, I should say, like on a worse level when it comes to our drought monitor for the entire region. So let's take a look at the atmospheric river.
Yeah.
And again, we'll show you a package in just a moment or so about kind of the history of atmospheric rivers, or kind of like more of a newer weather phenomenon that the scientists are getting to know more. But of course, with the satellites becoming more and more enhanced, we're able to see these just way past out before they arrive, which is great. But this is the atmospheric river. This is our water vapor imagery. And you could actually just see it's kind of like a river way up high in the atmosphere, a plume of moisture. And of course, we have a system this time around that's going to tap into all of that moisture. And in case you don't know what an atmospheric river is, it originates from the tropics. So it's a warmer system. And we know by now that warmer air can hold in a lot more moisture. So it's typically also not associated with very cool air, which is why temperatures are expected to drop, but it could be worse as far as the drop in temperatures.
It's a warm storm. Warmer.
Yes.
Some people may know these as pineapple expresses.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
They come from the Hawaii area,
Yeah,
pineapples, tropical, and that's why it's not going to bring snow, for example. We won't see low-level snow by any means. It's going to just be rain for most of our mountains, at least. But as far as the temperatures, don't expect it to be a cold, blustery storm.
Yes.
A lot of times we get storms up from the Gulf of Alaska, for example. Those are colder, low-pressure systems coming through, bringing in that cooler air. But this is different. This one's kind of a low and the river, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, let me fast forward this graphic here. So if we can go back to the graphics and showcase kind of the system that's going to tap into all of this moisture. So there's that area low there. And the ridging is to our right? It's just to our east. And typically the jet stream, it doesn't sink this low, which is why all of the cooler air stays well to our north, along with the storm system. So this is, again, why we're looking forward to torrential downpours, especially for SoCal, and the potential for flooding. We're talking about also the possibility for flooding, localized flooding, especially in those low-lying pockets, as I'm sure you know, Neda, we've seen before.
Oh, yeah. The boardwalks will get covered. There's places like Mission Beach, for example. There's all those stores that know and they put their sandbags up. But in this case, because it's been so long that we've had this level of an atmospheric river, there might be new construction, for example, or your home. Maybe you added a remodel where you don't know that could actually get flooded until, an incident like this.
It's
this
too
is
late.
a big one.
Yeah.
So that's why they've had sandbags out. Fire stations will still have those. Local rec centers. Check with your local firefighters and see if you need sandbags. If you start to see some of that ponding in a place maybe you haven't seen it happen before, just know we're looking at days of rain. So that image that Vanessa was showing us, the atmospheric river, it just kind of sits on us and just dumps.
It's just stalled.
So it is, like a literal river pouring down. That's going to really cause things that we may not know yet.
Yeah, it's almost like a fire hose, essentially. And then when we talk about the flood watch, it's county-wide. We typically see it confined to either the mountains or desert areas, right? The mountains and deserts typically get in on the most action. But this time, it's all bets are off. I mean, the coast and valleys where we don't really ever see flood watches could very well see this flood watch upgraded to a flood advisory or a flash flood warning. And we know by now, again, we cannot forget the floods that happened a couple of years ago in January, that it can really change in an instant, especially when you factor in thunderstorms that are associated with heavy downpours.
Right. Scripps Institution of Oceanography does a lot of studying of these atmospheric rivers. More information coming out constantly, and they're now kind of ranking them from levels, 0 up to 5 or beyond. But there's, head researcher in this, and they have a great visual to show us what these look like, what they can do. So our producer Kaz here, if you could play that out. This is by Scripps Institution of Oceanography right here at UC San Diego.
Imagine a river in the sky with more than twice the water of the Amazon. It's called an atmospheric river. Atmospheric rivers are long, narrow bands of concentrated water vapor that produce major amounts of rainfall. Atmospheric rivers begin in the warm waters of the Pacific, where water evaporates into the air. When this humid air meets a Pacific storm, the water vapor is concentrated and driven toward the coast, becoming a fire hose of rainfall and wind. Once the atmospheric river reaches the coastal mountains and the inland Sierra, the collision squeezes additional rain and snow from the system. Atmospheric rivers are responsible for up to half of California's annual precipitation. Scientists at Scripps Institution of Oceanography have developed a new system that rates atmospheric rivers on a scale from 1 to 5. The rating system helps identify atmospheric rivers that are beneficial, such as those that replenish reservoirs, and ones that produce hazards like flooding. Understanding atmospheric rivers is key to improving weather forecasts for better managing water resources and predicting flood risk.
Science and all the research that they continue to do over at Scripps always just blows my mind.
Incredible. And that's right here in our backyard.
Right.
And we're so lucky to have that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they have flown into the atmospheric rivers to gauge the power and the strength, like hurricane hunters. But now they're doing this on this level, which we need, the data to know what type, what level, what power we're going to get coming our way. So I know one of the researchers, the lead researcher, said this one could be like a level 3, which is pretty significant considering 5 is hazardous.
It's also kind of new language I'm finding, because typically, as forecasters, meteorologists, we don't ever say like, this is an atmospheric river, level 1, 2, 3, or 4. So kind of knowing that level and getting engaged on that, and also getting our viewers and our listeners used to that sort of threshold that we're at helps for the preparations.
Right. So when you hear level 3, just know we haven't had that since 2023.
Oh, wow.
So it's been a while that we've had that size of an atmospheric river, which is why we say, the outcome of this could lead to flooding in spots that you may not typically see. As far as the amount of rain that we desperately need, I mean, we talked about the ridging that has kept us dry from the summer through much of fall.
Right.
And now we're getting a decent amount dumped on us.
Yeah.
And we do need it, right, Vanessa?
We
could
do.
talk about that.
In fact, I'm going to have Kaz pull up our weather graphics again so we can kind of showcase and talk about the drought monitor, right? So this was actually updated today, as of today. And you can see that the northern half of California, they're good. But when we talk about the southwestern quadrant of California, we're under that severe level. And also parts of LA, Orange County, Santa Barbara, Ventura, they're under that moderate level. And then we're dry still for central parts of the state. So this rain event in particular is going to be huge for us in San Diego. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom on in as well. So it could be worse. We've seen San Diego, as I'm sure you know, Neda, under that extreme exceptional level. And the fact that we're under severe, it could be worse.
We're in the middle.
Exactly.
At least, on the drought monitor. But still, I mean, it shows that, they just saw this atmospheric river up in the Bay Area. They got dumped on. That also contributed to this change in the drought monitor. I mean, to see that they're not under drought conditions because of the storms that typically go there. Further north, we have the California Bight. So if people aren't familiar with that, Santa Barbara, things kind of stop there and then fizzle out. We always, people make fun of San Diego for that. Like, oh, you're preparing for a storm, but a San Diego storm could be not much.
Yeah.
Right?
And really the number and the activity when it comes to the rain, the drought monitor, that was indicative, right, of the rain that we see.
It shows the cutoff, right, where rain typically stays north. But with this, because it's coming a lot from the tropical region, the south, and it's staying on us, it's not like fast moving to flow further south quickly.
It's going to be a really like a fire hose on us. And let's go ahead and quickly touch on the water year, because I'm sure if you don't know by now, the water year starts October 1st, right? And it takes us all the way through the end of September. We were in a huge deficit. We weren't even halfway to our average last year when we wrapped up this past September.
Isn't it like -8 inches of rain? I remember in the summer that being like shocking to hear.
We were
where we should be for this time of year.
And then the year prior, of course, with the thunderstorm activity, the flash flooding that occurred, we were in a surplus. So when we talk about October 1st, that was the start of this new water year. So far, and this is data for Lindbergh Field, San Diego International Airport specifically, we only got close to about 4/10 of an inch or so. And typically we should be at about 3/4. So that puts us at about a 3/10 of an inch deficit. So this could very well get us out of that deficit. And it could also put us in a surplus, which would be exceptional.
Because right now it's looking like 1, maybe 2 inches. And obviously this can change over the days, but and it's multiple days of rain. This isn't just one day.
Honestly, it's going to be nonstop. Obviously the peak, the most extreme activity, we're looking at the models Saturday, Sunday, but as you and I know by now, that can change. The models are likely going to change, but it looks like the system is just going to kind of, especially the jet stream, going to sit just stalled over Southern California, and that's going to allow for a lot of moisture to enter the picture.
Maybe early next week, even another round at the end of the week. So just know that you'll need your umbrellas. Don't put that away. And hopefully, your home can withstand all of this water, or your yard. But, it's obviously important to have cleared out those drains and the gutters and things, which is why we always say that in advance of these storms. We're not just saying it just to say it. There's, people's safety and everything at risk there. And when it comes to roads, as you cover all the time, when it rains so heavily, people get into crashes, unfortunately. And throughout the week, we'll have wet roads. I mean, it's going to be slick all week long. Windshield wipers, hopefully they're working smoothly.
Yeah.
I ran into that, and you gave us the reminder to make sure you change them out.
Yeah. I mean, it's so easy to do, folks. I mean, I don't want to, call it, I don't want to sound like a commercial, but Costco always has the wipers on sale. But also
and tires.
And tires. Yeah, I think they got a warranty program too. But when it comes to, the fact that we haven't seen rain in quite some time, especially this season, and remember, we're entering some of the wettest months of the year, the roads very dry, so you can expect all of the oils, all of that kind of dirt to just get lifted on the freeways, and that's going to cause even slicker conditions when it comes to travel. So we have to be very mindful of that. And then, of course, you factor in the winds closer to the canyons, passes, and you're talking about reduced visibility as well. So as far as travel, I mean, I wouldn't travel on Saturday, but if you have to, just obviously we're going to continue to remind folks to be very, very cautious.
Yeah, over the next several days, I would say if you don't have to, try not to. I know people taking kids to school, for example, it might be soggy out there.
Yeah.
I had to tell our daughter no bicycle to school this week. Sorry.
Yeah.
But we put it all away to obviously cover it all up. You don't want everything to get super wet. And also, what I found was really interesting that we, in San Diego, we have a lot of eucalyptus trees.
Yeah.
And one of the arborists talked about why those in heavy rains like this are, could pose a hazard. They're
Yep.
giant trees. They're beautiful, but they have these shallow roots. And so those can come down.
Yeah.
So if you are out, keep in mind of what's above you.
And unfortunately, we've seen tragedies before when it comes to our native vegetation and trees. Sadly, there are too many that happen. So it's not even the roads that you have to be careful and using caution to maneuver around, but also just even being out on a walk, like be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, if you want to get outside because you're just tired of being indoors, we get it, of course. But maybe don't linger too long underneath a tree, for example. If it looks possibly older, decaying, things like that, they always say to I'll go on the Get It Done app, let them know, and then they'll hopefully be able to take that down or at least trim it down. So these have been things we've tried to let everyone know about in advance of the storm. Now that the storm's here, the rain's here, hopefully all those precautions have been made.
And also something to keep in mind too for anyone listening or even watching, if you see a down tree, down power line in your neighborhood, report it so they can get that cleared. And always, again, I know Eric described it, always assume that a power line is energized.
Yeah, it could zap you, basically is what that means.
Again,
scary.
We've seen and heard very bad situations related to that. So so what do I believe?
You can actually call 911. So they say if there is a down power line, because of the danger of someone getting electrocuted, call 911 and don't assume that someone already has done that. I think it's safer to put in those calls and they'll come and clear it. I mean, we've seen this in our neighborhood. They block the entire street because of the risk. They don't want anyone walking through. Yeah. And it does take some time, but that's the crews know that this is the time of year where they really need to be out there. They'll be working around the clock to hopefully help and clear all of that out of our roads.
And Neda, you're an anchor. You've anchored for several years. The reminder that we unfortunately have to always remind drivers, don't drive through flooded roads. And we always see it. We're always on breaking news.
Oh, it's like even the place behind Fashion Valley Mall, the river literally runs through that right on the road there. And that gets flooded because it is low lying.
Yep.
It is a typical spot where water comes. They close it. But I've seen people drive through that too. And for your own safety, just know your car, if you don't see the road, your car could get swept away. You could get stuck. And then think about the people, the safety rescue crews that you're putting their lives at risk too. So it's not just, I need to get somewhere, I need to do it now.
Yeah.
Think about all the other people that may need to come out and help you. And that's what we don't want to see.
Yeah. And again, I know we sound like broken records when we're like, turn around, don't drown. Right. We see so many of these rescues happen, especially down in the Tijuana River Valley too. It's ridiculous. Like, just don't do it. It's not worth it.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone is, staying safe, cozy while you're listening to this podcast right now. We are glad you are, because we're here for your safety, for your protection.
Yeah.
We also want to inform you, of course, and because as we mentioned, UC San Diego has all these great experts, resources here. John Rutz is the name of the man who is researching these atmospheric rivers, these storms that are now upon us. So he's the one who, said this maybe a level 3.
Yeah.
And our producer Dorian had a chance to talk to him to kind of get his knowledge. So we want to take a few minutes here to play that whole interview out if you want to just sit back and take in this great knowledge that we have.
Yeah.
My name is John Rutz, JONRUTZ. I'm an atmospheric scientist at the Center for Western Weather and Water Extremes at UC San Diego and Scripps Institution of Oceanography.
And I guess tell me the work you've done with atmospheric rivers. Sorry, you were part of the crew that found, or I guess discovered, what these were.
I would say that that would be the director of our center, Dr. Marty Ralph. He was really the first person to really widely publicize the importance of atmospheric rivers in the Western United States. And then a team of us, including Dr. Ralph and myself and others now at the center, we developed the AR scale paper about 6 years ago now to really try to broadly categorize these storms based on a few factors.
And just to kind of go into the general facts about them, these have been happening for however long, right? I mean, this isn't a new phenomenon. This is just something that you all realized what how these worked essentially.
That's right. New observational platforms, especially some of the satellite sensors that became available a couple of decades ago, first made it sort of more easily possible to detect these atmospheric rivers in the atmosphere. And since then, a lot of other techniques have been developed as well to observe and monitor them.
And I know it's a difficult question and difficult task ahead, but could you give a layperson's term essentially on just what an atmospheric river is? And then afterwards, why it occurs? Does it just occur on the west coast of North America, or are they other places?
Sure. So an atmospheric river is like a river on Earth, except instead of transporting water on the ground, it transports water vapor in the air. And so then when that water vapor reaches land, oftentimes it condenses into water, falls out, heavy precipitation, and you get all the issues that come along with that. Atmospheric rivers are not unique to the West Coast. They're actually a global phenomenon. They happen primarily on the west coasts of continents globally. They've been documented in Europe, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, even the polar, even Antarctica. So you name it. But they do have a very high impact on the U.S. West Coast because they tend to be coming right into these mountain barriers that run all up and down the west coast of the United States.
And when you mean mountain barriers, that means they just get stuck there and then they drench what's west of the mountains.
Yeah, primarily because those mountains force the air to rise, and that really drives that water vapor to become water and fall out.
And so, what's the significance of an atmospheric river compared to just a major low that comes through and sweeps through?
Yeah, good question. So, atmospheric rivers are going to tend to be longer duration, I would say, than your average storm system. And they tend to be more intense as well. So it's something that the other advantage of an atmospheric river, I'll say, is that we have better predictive skill when it comes to atmospheric rivers because they're large features. We often see them coming as far out as the West or Central Pacific. So we may not know exactly where that feature is going to make landfall or exactly how strong it will be, but we have a pretty good sense that something is coming.
And those do they typically produce more rain than what a major low would be? I know that's kind of hard to,
That is
you know,
hard. It really depends. I would say atmospheric rivers are more dependably heavy rain producers, and upper low pressure system, depending on how exactly it's oriented, how quickly it's moving, there's a lot of sort of factors that come into play there for precipitation.
okay, so let's go with the scale. So you helped develop the scale with the team. I guess briefly, if you can give me kind of what the AR1 versus what the AR5 is and what those differences could mean for people, in California if to experience. What would they see differently and how's that scale work?
Sure. I'll just start by mentioning that the sort of frequency of these various scale events varies a lot depending if you're in Northern or Southern California. Northern California is very wet. Southern California is much drier. I'll speak to you folks in San Diego there. So an AR1, that's going to be like a typical rain event that you're going to see a number of times a year. This is your typical San Diego winter rainstorm, right? An AR2 is going to be something stronger. This is going to be something that you see maybe a couple times each year on average. You could be, in your wetter years, you might have five or more of these, and some years you might not have any. But on average, over a long period of time, you see a couple of these each year. An AR3 is going to be pretty rare. An AR3 is going to now be something that you see every few years or so. You could go 5, 6, 7 years without having one, for example. When you start talking about AR4 and AR5, these have happened historically in San Diego, at least AR4. I have to check on 5, but those are much more common when you get further north, north of the central coast of California, up in Northern California. Very, very rare to see like a 4 or 5 in San Diego.
And so what is forecasted now? And I guess how secure is that forecast, I guess, first off? Like what are we
Yeah,
expecting and what are the chances of it, what could happen?
good question. So right now, what we're looking at is probably an AR2. If I had to bias it high or low, it's an AR2 that's a little bit on the higher side of AR2. So some of the model solutions that we're looking at are suggesting an AR3. So there's room for this to move around. It could back off and become like a high-end AR1. It could turn into AR3. That's kind of the range that we're talking about here. At this point, normally, I will say normally when we get this close in the forecast range, we're talking about Saturday morning now, usually that's a pretty high confidence forecast and it's not going to change a lot. This storm is sort of unique because it is an atmospheric river, but it's associated with this cutoff low pressure system that's dropping south along the coast. And that's been really sort of more unpredictable than usual. That forecast has been changing rapidly over the past couple days. 2 days ago, we weren't really, this was a sort of an unlikely scenario, right? And now here we are. So I would say right now we're looking at a 2 with the potential for anywhere from 1 to 3.
And so that difference between the 1 to 3 is pretty significant.
Yeah, that's right. It can be.
And what would that mean, let's say, if it went higher to the 3? Is there like inches more, or is there a way to measure that?
I wouldn't think of it as corresponding one-to-one precipitation like that. Part of the nuance here is that, slight changes in the duration or the intensity of the storm can shift it from even like from a 1 to a 3, for example. Like if it shifts if the water vapor, let me put it this way, the intensity of the storm weakens just a little bit and the duration weakens just a little bit, that can actually be the difference between like a high end 2 and a 1, just because we have these sort of hard thresholds in there. So I would think of it as sort of this broad measure of where impacts are going and not really specifically prescriptive of like the amount of precipitation, for example, that we're expected to receive. Another way to say that is whether we end up kind of high end 1 or even into like AR3 at the end of the day, either way, probably looking at about 2 to 4 inches widespread precipitation for a lot of San Diego County, maybe 4 or 5 inches in the mountains.
Have we seen, because I guess, have we seen a 4 where on the website it had said AR4 event, I think. And is that something where that's typically more northern than it is San Diego?
Yeah, so this has, in fact, I can go and look at something real quick here that I have up. So this is anticipated to be a 4 as you move into the San Francisco Bay Area, and a 3 a little bit to either side of that. Right up through the Los Angeles area, it still is looking primarily at a 2. And again, that gives you a sense of, the scale is useful because it's simple. It gives one number to get your attention and get you thinking about what we generally see. But there's a lot of, but the weakness is also that it's simple, right?
I do want to note that I was looking back at the climatology data for Lindbergh Field in terms of the rain, and I was like, when was it really the wettest last, right? We got about 0.4 of an inch or so in September, October, all because of the monsoon, right? We know that just dumps heavy rain, but it's also really muggy and really hot. But it looks here, according to this report, and again, this is data for San Diego International Airport. That's where all the numbers are recorded for downtown San Diego. We got 2.9 inches back in March.
Wow, yeah.
So we could very well, again, the preliminary totals were anywhere between 3 to 4 inches. They're a lot less now.
1 to 2, closer to that.
Right. But if we see, again, this prolonged kind of system just dumping rain within the next 7 days, we could very well meet a quarter of our annual average rainfall, which would be incredible.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, to get that from this series that's now here. Yeah. Really, obviously, we need it so bad, as we mentioned, because of the drought and how dry everything is. But that also means we're stuck inside a lot. Yeah. San Diegans don't like that very much. Yeah. But we love our outdoor activities.
And I will note, Neda, I was looking at November for last year.
Okay.
We only got 1/10 of an inch of rain.
In the whole month of November?
1,300, so about 1/10 or so in the whole month of November last year.
Yeah.
So if we kind of keep up with this pattern of atmospheric rivers, or even again, just systems that bring rain, this will be so beneficial for our water year numbers. It could very well kind of keep us in that surplus.
This is a total random side mention thing, but just a personal note here.
Yeah.
My husband and I, we chose to get married in November because looking back historically, climate, rain totals, November is a very dry month. So we picked 11/11 and it was dry, beautiful sunsets in November. But this November, absolutely not. As we've seen, this is definitely going rogue. And
if anyone used that method to plan their wedding for this November, they might be out of luck. But it's hard to tell because most of the month has just been amazing, almost perfect weather. And now we're looking at just heavy, rainy, gross kind of storm taking over the county. So
we can definitely, embrace the rainfall in our ways that we do. And if you are tired of being stuck at home, hey, you have us. You can always tune in, CBS 8. We are here for you. Vanessa Paz and I are both here in the mornings. Meteorologist Evan Narani as well. Eric Connor, of course, Regina, Chris, they're out in the field covering this storm. So our team coverage will continue on. For all of you at home, please tune in. CBS 8. We're on from 5 in the morning till 9 a.m. for those of you who are not aware of the hours that we work. And then again from 11 to 12:30, that's on TV. We are streaming all day. So you can always watch our streaming channel, which is where you're catching us right now.
And I also want to quickly note before we wrap it up, follow us on social. We have multiple, obviously there are several of us, meteorologists, myself, Neda included. Follow us on social and I will do my best also to keep everyone updated if these flood watches get extended or they get upgraded or there's new ones popping up, things that would certainly help you with your daily activities.
Because even on our downtime, we're still weather nerds at heart.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, it's fascinating stuff. So, Vanessa, it was fun chatting with you.
That was so fun, Neda.
Kaz,
let's do it again. Let's do this
Producer
again.
Kaz over here. This was great. So, yes, thank you to everyone tuning in. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you soon.